Why cucumber leaves turn yellow, the real causes and proven solutions. Have you ever walked out to your cucumber plants in the morning, expecting to see lush green leaves, only to discover patches of yellow spreading across the vines? At first, it may seem like a minor problem. Maybe it's just an old leaf reaching the end of its life. But a few days later, another leaf turns yellow. Then another. Before long, your once healthy cucumber plants begin to lose their rich green color, growth slows, flowers drop off, and the harvest you were expecting suddenly looks uncertain. This is one of the most common problems gardeners face, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people immediately assume the plants need more fertilizer. Others water more often, believing the leaves are drying out. Some rush to spray fungicides without knowing whether disease is actually present. Unfortunately, these reactions often make the situation even worse. The truth is that yellow cucumber leaves are not a disease by themselves. They are a warning signal. Your plant is telling you that something is wrong. The challenge is learning how to interpret that signal correctly. The exact shade of yellow, the location of the affected leaves, the weather conditions, soil moisture, and even the pattern of yellowing all provide valuable clues about what is happening inside the plant. Today's video will show you how to read those clues like an experienced gardener. By the end, you'll know how to identify the real cause of yellow leaves, understand why the problem develops, and choose the right solution instead of relying on guesswork. Whether you grow cucumbers in raised beds, traditional gardens, greenhouses, containers, or even on a balcony, the principles are exactly the same. Let's begin with something that surprises many gardeners. Not every yellow leaf is a problem. Cucumber plants naturally replace older leaves as they grow. The oldest leaves are located near the bottom of the plant. As the vine becomes larger and produces more flowers and fruit, these lower leaves gradually receive less sunlight. The plant begins to move valuable nutrients from these aging leaves into new shoots, flowers, and developing cucumbers. Eventually the oldest leaves turn pale green, then yellow, and finally dry out. If only one or two of the oldest leaves near the base become yellow while the rest of the plant remains healthy, this is perfectly normal. There's no need to panic, add fertilizer, or spray chemicals. Simply remove the fully yellow leaves with clean pruning shears to improve air circulation around the plant. However, problems begin when yellowing spreads quickly, affects young leaves, climbs upward through the vine, or appears together with wilting, spots, curling, or poor fruit production. These are clear signs that your cucumbers are under stress. The most common cause of yellow cucumber leaves is improper watering. Many gardeners believe cucumbers simply need lots of water. While cucumbers are indeed thirsty plants, watering too much can be just as damaging as watering too little. Let's first examine underwatering. When soil becomes too dry, the roots cannot absorb enough moisture to replace what the leaves lose through evaporation. As a result, the plant begins conserving water. Older leaves are sacrificed first. Because the plant prioritizes young growth and fruit, these older leaves start turning yellow before eventually drying out completely. You may also notice leaves drooping during the hottest part of the day. If they recover after sunset, this can be normal temporary heat stress. But if the leaves remain limp the following morning, the soil is likely too dry. Fortunately, correcting underwatering is usually straightforward. Water deeply instead of lightly, sprinkling the surface. Deep watering encourages roots to grow farther into the soil, making plants much more resistant to future dry periods. Aim to moisten the soil to a depth of at least 6 to 8 inches. After watering, allow the top inch of soil to dry slightly before watering again. This balance provides roots with both moisture and oxygen. Adding a layer of mulch around cucumber plants is another highly effective strategy. Organic mulch such as straw, shredded leaves, untreated grass clippings, or compost reduces evaporation. keeps soil temperatures more stable, suppresses weeds, and decreases watering frequency. Now let's look at the opposite problem. Overwatering. This is actually more common than underwatering in many home gardens. Roots require oxygen just as much as they require water. When soil stays saturated for long periods, the air spaces between soil particles fill with water instead of oxygen. The roots begin to suffocate. Damaged roots cannot absorb nutrients efficiently, even though those nutrients may be abundant in the soil. The first visible symptom is often yellow leaves. Gardeners frequently misinterpret this yellowing as nutrient deficiency and apply more fertilizer. Unfortunately, adding fertilizer cannot solve a root oxygen problem. In some cases, it increases stress by raising salt concentrations around already damaged roots. Signs of overwatering include constantly wet soil, slow plant growth, soft stems near the base, yellow leaves throughout the plant, and sometimes a sour smell coming from the soil. The solution is not simply watering less for a day or two. The real goal is improving drainage. Heavy clay soils benefit from incorporating compost over time. Raised beds drain much better than compacted ground. Containers must always have sufficient drainage holes so excess water can escape freely. Another simple habit can prevent many watering mistakes. Instead of watering according to the calendar, check the soil first. Insert your finger about 2 inches into the soil. If it still feels moist, wait another day. If it feels dry at that depth, it's time to water thoroughly. This single habit often prevents both underwatering and overwatering, eliminating 2 of the most common reasons cucumber leaves turn yellow. But water is only one piece of the puzzle. Even perfectly watered cucumber plants can develop yellow leaves if they aren't receiving the nutrients required for rapid growth. In fact, nutrient deficiencies create some of the most recognizable yellowing patterns you'll ever see. Learning to identify these patterns allows you to diagnose problems within minutes instead of relying on guesswork. In the next section, we'll examine exactly how nitrogen, magnesium, potassium, iron, and several other essential nutrients affect leaf color and how to tell them apart before making any corrections. Nutrient deficiencies, what the yellow pattern is trying to tell you. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is assuming that every yellow leaf means the plant needs more fertilizer. While nutrient deficiencies are certainly a common cause of yellowing, adding the wrong fertilizer can waste money and sometimes even make the problem worse. The key is learning to recognize the specific pattern of discoloration. Plants often reveal exactly which nutrient is missing if you know what to look for. Nitrogen deficiency. Nitrogen is the nutrient responsible for vigorous leafy growth. Cucumbers grow rapidly, producing large leaves, long vines, flowers, and fruit over a relatively short season. That rapid growth requires a constant supply of nitrogen. When nitrogen becomes limited, the plant moves it from older leaves into younger ones because new growth is the highest priority. As a result, the oldest leaves near the bottom begin turning pale green before becoming uniformly yellow. Unlike many diseases, nitrogen deficiency usually causes an even yellow color across the entire leaf, rather than isolated spots or unusual patterns. Growth also slows noticeably. New leaves remain smaller than normal, vines become thinner, and fruit production declines. If your cucumbers are already carrying several developing fruits, nitrogen deficiency may become even more obvious because the plant is directing nutrients toward fruit instead of maintaining older foliage. The solution depends on your gardening style. Organic gardeners often use compost, well-aged manure, fish emulsion, blood meal, or alfalfa meal to provide nitrogen gradually. Gardeners using synthetic fertilizers should choose a balanced vegetable fertilizer and always follow the application instructions carefully. More fertilizer does not always produce healthier plants. Excess nitrogen often encourages lush leaf growth while reducing flowering and fruit production. Magnesium deficiency. Magnesium plays a central role in chlorophyll production. Without enough magnesium, leaves cannot maintain their rich green color. Unlike nitrogen deficiency, magnesium deficiency usually affects older leaves first, but the veins remain green while the tissue between the veins gradually turns yellow. This distinctive pattern is called interveinal chlorosis. As the deficiency progresses, brown dead patches may eventually develop between the veins. Magnesium shortages are more common in sandy soils where nutrients wash away quickly after heavy rain or frequent irrigation. If soil testing confirms low magnesium, products containing magnesium sulfate can help restore normal growth. However, avoid applying supplements unless you are reasonably confident this is the actual problem. Potassium deficiency. Potassium is essential for water regulation, disease resistance, strong stems, and high-quality fruit production. When potassium is lacking, the edges of older leaves often begin turning yellow while the center remains greener. Eventually, those yellow margins may become brown and dry, giving the leaf a scorched appearance. Fruit may develop poorly, remain smaller than expected, or become misshapen. Because potassium helps regulate water movement inside the plant, deficiency symptoms often become more severe during hot weather. Iron deficiency. Iron behaves differently from nitrogen and magnesium. Since iron cannot easily move from older leaves into new ones, the youngest leaves show symptoms. First, new growth appears yellow while the veins remain distinctly green. This can alarm gardeners because the top of the plant suddenly loses its healthy color even though older leaves still look normal. Iron deficiency is often caused not by a lack of iron in the soil, but by soil conditions that prevent roots from absorbing it. Highly alkaline soil is a common reason. Simply adding more iron without correcting soil conditions may provide little improvement. Calcium deficiency. Although calcium deficiency is less common in garden cucumbers than in some other vegetables, it can occur under inconsistent watering conditions. Calcium moves through plants with water. Even if soil contains enough calcium, irregular watering can interrupt its movement. Young leaves may become distorted, growth slows, flowers may drop prematurely, and developing fruits can suffer from poor quality. Maintaining consistent soil moisture is often just as important as providing adequate nutrition. Why soil pH matters. Many gardeners never test their soil. Yet soil pH determines whether roots can actually absorb nutrients. Even nutrient-rich soil may leave plants starving if the pH is too high or too low. For cucumbers, a soil pH between approximately 6.0 and 7.0 generally provides the best nutrient availability. Testing soil every few years helps eliminate guesswork and allows fertilizers to be used more efficiently. Heat stress. Sometimes yellow leaves are not caused by watering or nutrition at all. Extreme temperatures place enormous stress on cucumber plants. During prolonged heat waves, especially when daytime temperatures remain above 95 degrees Fahrenheit 35 degrees Celsius, photosynthesis slows. The plant closes tiny openings called stomata to conserve water. This protective response also limits carbon dioxide intake, reducing food production inside the leaves. Older leaves may gradually yellow because the plant redirects limited energy toward survival. Flowers are especially sensitive to heat. Many gardeners notice blossoms falling off during extremely hot weather. This is the plant's way of reducing energy demands until growing conditions improve. Providing afternoon shade during extreme heat, applying mulch, and watering early in the morning help reduce temperature stress. Cold stress. Cucumbers are warm season plants. Temperatures below about 55 degrees Fahrenheit 13 degrees Celsius slow root activity dramatically. Even if nutrients are plentiful, cold roots absorb them much more slowly. Leaves may become pale, yellow, or slightly mottled. Growth almost stops until warmer weather returns. Cold nights followed by cool, wet soil frequently produce temporary yellowing in young plants. Planted too early. Waiting until soil has warmed properly before transplanting greatly reduces this risk. Sunlight problems. Most cucumber varieties need at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight every day. Plants growing in too much shade often produce long, weak vines with fewer flowers and lighter, colored leaves. Lower leaves naturally receive less sunlight as vines become dense. Removing a few overcrowded leaves can improve air circulation and allow sunlight to reach deeper into the canopy without over-pruning the plant. Now we've covered watering, nutrients, soil conditions, and environmental stress. But sometimes yellow leaves signal something far more serious. Several fungal diseases, bacterial infections, viruses, and insect pests begin with yellowing leaves, long before gardeners notice any obvious damage. Recognizing these warning signs early can mean the difference between saving your cucumber crop and losing it almost entirely. That's exactly what we'll cover in the next section. Diseases and pests, when yellow leaves signal a bigger problem. If you've checked your watering routine, confirmed your plants are getting enough nutrients, and the weather hasn't been unusually hot or cold, it's time to consider another possibility: diseases or insect pests. Many serious cucumber problems begin with yellow leaves. The sooner you identify them, the greater the chance of saving your plants and protecting the rest of your garden. Let's start with the most common fungal disease: downy mildew. Downy mildew is one of the most destructive diseases affecting cucumbers. It thrives in cool, humid conditions, especially when leaves remain wet for long periods. The first signs are pale yellow or light green angular spots on the upper surface of the leaves. These spots are often limited by the leaf veins, giving them a distinctive blocky appearance. As the disease progresses, the yellow areas enlarge and eventually turn brown. On the underside of the leaves, especially in the early morning, you may notice a grayish-purple fuzzy growth. This is one of the clearest signs of downy mildew. Once many leaves become infected, the plant loses much of its ability to produce energy through photosynthesis. Fruit production drops rapidly, and cucumbers may remain small or stop developing altogether. The best defense is prevention. Avoid watering from above whenever possible. Water at the base of the plant so the foliage stays dry. Space plants properly to improve air circulation and remove heavily infected leaves as soon as you notice them. If the disease becomes severe, labeled fungicides may help slow its spread, but they work best when applied early. Powdery mildew. Unlike downy mildew, powdery mildew usually appears during warm days combined with cooler nights. Its most recognizable feature is a white, powder-like coating on leaves and stems. Before this white coating becomes obvious, leaves may begin turning pale yellow. As the infection spreads, leaves curl, dry out, and eventually die. Good airflow, proper spacing, and avoiding excessive nitrogen fertilizer help reduce the risk of powdery mildew. Bacterial wilt. One of the most frustrating cucumber diseases is bacterial wilt. Interestingly, the yellow leaves are not the first symptom. Plants often begin wilting suddenly, even though the soil contains adequate moisture. Soon afterward, leaves become yellow and eventually brown. The disease is spread primarily by cucumber beetles. Unfortunately, once a plant becomes infected, there is no cure. The best approach is removing infected plants quickly to reduce further spread and controlling cucumber beetles before they transmit the bacteria. Fusarium and other root diseases.